Good morning. Welcome to Wednesdays with Willa. We're doing a special access tour to the Lyceum building here in Lilydale. And we're just getting started, and we're going to have a great show for you today. If you're coming to Wednesdays with Willa for the first time, this is my weekly podcast show that airs Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern on my Facebook page, Willa White Medium. It also goes on to the Lilydale Facebook page as well as my YouTube channel. And I encourage you to look back at the archive videos of the show because this is year 6, the end of year 6 of episodes. So there are lots of past shows that you can enjoy. A lot of people tell me that they binge watch the shows and they learn more about mediumship, spiritualism, healing, faith, family, and more. And I am delighted to have back on the show today, my special guest is Ray Taft. Hello, Ray.
Good morning. Nice to be here again. It's
great to have you on the show again. You probably remember Ray from when we were at the Lilydale Museum. We recently did a tour. Was that last month or so ago?
Last month, yeah.
And you were so wonderful to go through many of those photos on the wall of past Lilydale folks that have been influential and have just given them hearts and souls to this place and to spiritualism. So we're so grateful whenever you come on the show to share your history knowledge. And Ray Taft has been a lifetime resident of Lilydale.
Since the day I was born.
That's right. Literally lifetime. And you have raised your family here, and you know, you and your wife have been wonderful pillars in the Lilydale community, and it's great that Ray could be on the show here again today because you probably recognize him if you come in the summertime. He is part of the historical ghost walk tours, and so Ray walks us around and points out buildings and spaces that are important to Lilydale and share history about the people who've been here before. And not a lot of ghosts, per se, on the walk, in that sense.
We think of them in a different order.
Exactly. And not about the spook and boo, shall we say.
No.
And in particular, I would encourage you to look back at the archive videos of the show where Ray has been on my show to show us the auditorium building, because we did that one, and also the Maplewood Hotel. So if anybody's been curious to know more about the big auditorium building that is central to our events here in the summer, it holds, I don't know, 800 some people or so, probably more. And the Maplewood Hotel, which is a very old hotel, quaint here in Lilydale,
with a
many
great deal of
stories.
History behind it.
Yeah, so a lot of great info there from the past. So without further ado, we're going to get on with our special access tour to the Andrew Jackson Davis Lyceum building. And I know you have some things to share with us about what this space is and why this would be important. Maybe I should quickly orient people. We are on East Street in Lilydale, and we're part of, I'm going to switch this around real quick if I can. There we go. We are actually in the Lilydale playground area known as the Children's Acre, and that's where the Lyceum building is situated. It's not too far from Mother's Rest and the trail that takes you out to Inspiration Stump, which is where they have a message service. So back to Ray here, so he can explain a little bit about Lyceum.
Lyceum was a Greek-oriented educational system from prior to the birth of Christ. And in so doing, that educational system was meant at that time to nurture children, especially in the wonders of the natural world.
Yeah.
Science, as best it was known in those days, was beginning to be processed into the minds of men, women, and children. And it was felt to be very important by persons of that time. Socrates, all of the old-timers, would tell these youngsters that a knowledge of the natural world was very important as it related to their physicality, their spirituality, and their mentality. And as an educational process, it was adapted into the spiritualist ethic back during a time which is known today as antebellum spiritualism. It was during a period of time when the new America, or United States as it would become, was said to be in a Jacksonian democracy. And by hearing the name Andrew Jackson, who was president during some of those years, we will find out that a lot of people named their young sons Andrew Jackson Smith or Andrew Jackson Jones. And in the case of this man, who was born in the 1820s, Andrew Jackson Davis. And in those early years of his life, he was gifted to be healed through mesmerism, and became acquainted with persons where a massive amount of education occurred in his life. And in doing so, he found that Lyceum would be a very beneficial addition to the growing spiritualist ethic in America. And thus, he was a proponent of the Lyceum system of education for young people throughout all the days of his life. Now, as it stood, he was born in about 1826 and lived until the turn of the 20th century.
And we'll show you a picture and tell you more about him when we get inside, too.
Now, as to the history of this children's acre,
I'll switch this so you guys can see a little bit of where we might be pointing you.
Now, this is about an acre of land measured off, and Lilydale, as it stood up until the time of this piece of property being developed, ended back over here at East Street. Those were the boundaries up until the early 1920s of the Lilydale Assembly Association. And in the early 20s, this piece of property was acquired all the way along East Street over to the Leolin Woods.
And there's the labyrinth there, if anybody would like to know what those low-lying hedges are. I just thought I'd point it out while we're looking at it.
And in this piece of land being acquired, the last addition to the land access of Lilydale, this children's acre was set aside and dedicated to children, and this building was built and memorialized to Andrew Jackson Davis as a Lyceum educational building, and it has pretty much remained such all of these years. As we go through our process today, we'll speak more on the people and the things that they did over those years. And it was up until, I would say, the late 1980s that it was used extensively as a Lyceum building throughout the summertime season and on Sundays, which was the normal amount of time that it would be used. Other times the Spiritualist church would use it for dinners and whatnot. But primarily it has always stood as an educational foundation for young people.
And it was first established here in Lilydale in a tent that was closer to the auditorium building, and I know then they eventually had to move that because children needing some space a bit more away from things, and they moved it to 15 North Street, which is a house that's next to mine actually, which would be, I think, too small. Small.
And then from there, during that period of time, they kept the Lyceum together, and I believe it was in 1923 or 1924, thereabouts, that this building was erected and
I have it as 1928, but I bet they started making plans in 23, 24. I think that's probably what happened.
I can't be.
And I know it was right,
but it was at that time brought to life, and it gave the children a building where all different age levels could have a room of their own.
And I believe it's Mrs. Caldwell. I can't always say her Caldwater. I can't remember how to say her name right.
Cadwallader.
Yes.
Yeah, something to that effect.
She's the one that was integral in making sure that this was donated and built for the children.
And I believe it was her that had the doll.
Oh,
tea
yes,
party.
the doll tea parties. Yes.
I do still have a couple of the discs, or the DVDs, are they?
Oh,
the
okay.
Discs,
yeah.
that were, some of them color film, that were taken by a neighbor of mine that I grew up next door to, Melvin Larson, who was here most of his life. And Melvin would go around spring, summer, winter, and fall with an 8mm movie camera, and he would take pictures of folks and things here around Lilydale, the Silver Tea, and all of those things that occurred during the summertime. But
and that's something people need permission for, by the way.
They did have, during the summertime, a midsummer parade with all of the children, and to see all of these kids marching up and down the streets here in Lilydale during the summer. As I was a kid growing up here, we never saw that many kids here at Lyceum, but it was something that drew
Very
all
popular.
of the children in every day, basically during the week, and they learned here what it meant to be a productive citizen in their community, and given an idea of what spirituality was, regardless of how they felt towards anything religious or otherwise. They were given an understanding of the natural world. And I will say that I have known one of those persons who was a young man during those years when this piece of land was first being developed as the Children's Acre.
Right.
And many of these trees that you see here on this acre were dug out of the woods back here and transplanted onto this ground. And it has been preserved as a little Garden of Eden, so to speak.
Yes.
And it is going to remain such for as long as it is entitled to do so. But that's up to humanity, which was Andrew Jackson Davis's ideal of the way humanity should reflect upon itself and its religious entities, whatever divinity one should choose to acquire in their lives. Shall we go inside?
Sure, let's show them inside.
This is a good solid old building, probably built right around that time which you said, because there was, before the Great Depression, a good deal of construction going on here around the Dale. There was still time allotted and funds allotted for doing so.
And now the Lyceum building is used primarily for summer workshops. So if you are planning to come to Lilydale for the 2023 season, it's possible one of your workshops may be in here. And it's a nice kind of cool building. There is air conditioning. They can open up the door for breeze. If you don't want air conditioning, it depends on the teacher, the instructor of the day. But this is also used in the summertime for Children's Week by the children, and the various activities, and we'll call them workshops for children that they offer during that week.
The Lyceum Conference, as it pertains to spiritualism, is still part of the spiritualist ethic, and it's a very strong part of the spiritualist ethic still, but it requires participation and that volunteering effort of persons to be able to gather those children together. We have Dr. Patricia Bell, who is very much a proponent of the Children's Lyceum during the summer, and that part of the conference for a week is held here at the Lyceum. And the children get a week of understanding of what Lyceum and togetherness at Lyceum is about and was about historically. But if we turn ourselves around here in the building, you can see this is a very good sized room, probably 30 plus feet by 30 plus feet, with part of the building over on that side to the north, and to the south more of the building here. It's a good sized building, and it can accommodate a good number of people. But if we look over here at the fireplace, we get the best picture of who the man was that this Lyceum is memorialized to. Andrew Jackson Davis, having been born in the late 1820s, was a resident of this state, and his father and family, mother and some other siblings, moved around a great deal at that time, looking for work, because that was the type of work that Davis's father was involved in. He was primarily a cobbler, a shoemaker, a trade which Davis did try to learn. But as he grew into early manhood, he found himself becoming interested in the healing form of what was called at that time mesmerism.
It's a form.
It is a form of healing that was brought into public view by Anton Mesmer from Germany, I believe he was, and it ran around the tri-state area, so to speak, once it hit the shores of the New America, and became a very popular session for people to attend, and it was a form of magnetic healing.
Yes.
And with Jackson having participated, Jackson Davis participated in mesmeric seance and was entranced, and because of it, his health gained for him a greater degree of stability, and it allowed him to bring his mind to a place which he called the superior condition. And in that superior condition, he not only was healed, so to speak, he found himself able to clairvoyantly give medical diagnoses to persons. And remember, they didn't have a pharmacy to go to back in the old days. They brought their medicines from out here in the wild. And very much of that healing that occurred was because of those diagnoses that were able to be brought through seance, through clairvoyance, to others. A good deal of the work, aside from Lyceum, that Andrew Jackson Davis was part of, occurred here in New York State, especially down around the New York City area. And it was there that Andrew Jackson Davis sat in that superior condition and dictated a vast number of manuscripts, which became the many books that were written through his giving of those dialogues.
Yes. Now, something to note about Andrew Jackson Davis is that he had been virtually illiterate, which, you know, when you think about those days, he was virtually illiterate when he first came to the understanding of healing modalities, and then into trance channeling that he was able to do. For someone to come from that low level and have all of the verbal acuity that he did.
Very much.
It was a true channeling of information known as automatic writing in mediumship. And so that today is what we would recognize it to be. And so, and just close the door. But it's something to, when you read his books, you have to read from the understanding that he did not know any of this information prior to.
And his family, during those early years, up until the time when he became involved with others who were interested in the developing spiritualist ethic, his family moved around a great deal. So he didn't have a chance to settle down into a structured school system and learn.
Yes.
And by the time he was in his late teens and had experienced healing through mesmerism, he had been introduced to persons who said, I think it's time that now we take you on the road so that you can present to the world what this has done
And
for
help
you.
people.
And that's what he did. He helped as much as he possibly could. Now, speaking back to all of the seances, or whatever they would want to call them at the time, that he sat in that superior condition and dictated those manuscripts, which became his books. One of the strange occurrences in my life is that while I was attending Jamestown Community College, I was befriended by Professor Marshall Martz. He was our astronomy professor back during the 70s. And while sitting discussing life in general with this wonderful man, Marshall got that smile on his face. Knowing that I was from Lilydale, he said, have you ever heard of a man called Andrew Jackson Davis? I said, well, yes, Professor, I have. And that smile grew wider, and he says, I have all of his original manuscripts, handwritten. Those manuscripts that were dictated over the couple of years' time. Apparently, Andrew Jackson Davis had traveled far and wide and through the city of Jamestown, and somehow or another, those manuscripts had been set aside all those years ago, and Professor Martz had come into possession of all of those handwritten manuscripts. Absolutely pieces of writing that you have to understand they were written in the language of the day. And it's a slow read.
It's not Shakespeare. Don't worry, folks. It's not Shakespeare.
It isn't Shakespeare.
It's not Middle English, Old English, or anything like that.
But it is describing life as it was back during that antebellum period of spiritualist growth. And because of those things being as they were, the development of the systems that became far and wide spiritualism, Andrew Jackson Davis's books were, and his lectures, people flocked to his lectures. They were a drawing source to this new profession of spirituality. And it, like wildfire, went across every bit of what was America at the time, right up until that period of time when America was engaged in the Civil War. After that, a lot of communities grew up around the nation, several hundred of them possibly, that were spiritualist communities, all designed by the people who were there. And there were newspapers, plenty of them, along with the books that Jackson Davis had been dictating down in New York City. And they're hard to get hold of today because they're out of print.
precious treasures that they are. And I think another thing that's important to note is that he had a spirit guide that he really worked with extensively throughout his life, that was a major spirit influence for his work and for his mediumship and for the healing he was able to affect in others. And so he, at one point, it was called the Magic Staff, right? Mm-hmm. The Magic Staff. So if anybody's looking for old books that Andrew Jackson wrote, you're going to want to look up Harmonial Philosophy. Mm-hmm. You're going to want to look up the Magic Staff, which is probably the most famous one that most people sticks in their head a little bit more.
I think if a person were to contact the Library of Congress, mm-hmm. that they would be able to get an idea of the full amount of literature that was. I want to say there were better than a half dozen books.
But I feel pretty sure that the NSAC office here in Lilydale, the National Spiritualist Association of Churches office, mm-hmm. they do have books that they sell of spiritualism, mm-hmm. and it's very possible that they would be a resource for those that want to know more about Andrew Jackson Davis and other mediums and other texts having to do with mediumship and healing.
Yes, it surprises me that being that we're in such an age of technology, that Davis's books aren't something that
I'm sure they're probably on Kindle, on Amazon. You can find things on Amazon, but I'm just saying as a resource for that's local to us here in Lilydale.
But getting back to the ideals of Lyceum.
Yes. Should we focus on those principles?
Yes, I was just going to ask that we walk over there. This is for Lyceum. The principles of spiritualism as they are given at Lyceum. They follow the same principles that are within the Spiritualist church.
Yes. I mean, they are a bit more put in simpler terms.
They're written for a young person to understand. And they are those tenets which we as spiritualists prescribe to. And in Lyceum, they are simply written for children to understand so that they can draw them into their own lives. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, they become, as was put in years past by their teachers, to do good, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. to do better, and to do best. Good, better, best. Yes. A simple way to live our lives. And if we find ourselves doing that, we can be happy with our existence. Mm-hmm. We can be happy with those around us, but most importantly, happy with ourselves.
Yes. And a big part of that is living in accordance with spiritual natural law. So when number 3 there, nature's laws are referring to spiritual natural law, law of attraction, law of personal responsibility, a law of vibrational frequency, law of creative reality, all of those kinds of laws, law of abundance. Those are all part of the learning that would be part of Lyceum for adults and children.
Yes, and in coming down from that natural law, this here is that which we see in all religious text. It is that, whether it be written in form for Confucianism or Buddhism or Mohammedanism or Judaism or Christianity, it is the golden rule to do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. That speaks volumes towards all things, whether it be reacting towards humankind or the natural world. Yes. As we see ourselves in it, we want to be treated and best to treat others as we would have good done. Yeah. More needs to be done each and every day. And I have been honored to be part of the Lyceum Conference in respect to a gathering of persons a little bit older than myself who have come here for quite a number of years now for a Lyceum reunion. And they are persons, many of them who are getting up into their late 70s and early 80s, and they are making, many of them, their transition into the next expression of life. But to come into this building that first time when I was asked to come here and speak with them and be with them, it was like watching them become those children that they were when they attended Lyceum here during the summer and on Sundays all those years ago, to speak amongst themselves and remember the days when they were young children learning about this, learning about each other, and importantly, learning about themselves and their relationship to the world around them and everything.
Don't you think it's also they were remembering who they truly are?
Absolutely.
And it starts in those foundations as a child. And even as adults, we need to have that awe and wonder like a child.
Absolutely.
And have that reverence and joy for the divine and for the divine connection of being with people that we can like and love and experience.
It is given to us naturally, whether or not an adult says, this is the way this goes. We have a natural curiosity about all things around us. And especially when we have viewed the world, the natural world around us, and all things that are in it, and then we go out in the evening and look up into the sky, and the wonder that that gives us. I guess that's probably why I signed up for astronomy classes when I went to community college over in Jamestown. But in doing so, I was able to meet a man who was probably one of the most dynamic influences in my life as far as grasping my own personal spirituality and my relationship to the natural world and the cosmic world. We are part of such a greater thing here in this universe that we most certainly should take the time to become aware of everything that is around us, setting aside all of the diplomacy that doesn't get done, setting aside all of the things that make our heart ache, still knowing that in this, the best of all possible worlds where we are, that we can, as individuals, make a complete difference, first of all in our own lives, and strive to do that in the lives of others, very much the same as this man did all of the days of his life, and in concert with all of the people that he came in contact to bring into focus a idea of divinity that suited individuals. That was the purpose. Self-assurance, self-recognition, and being reliant upon yourself to be able to make decisions in a proper fashion. And Lyceum was always and always will be a part of that process given to young people.
Yes.
And I think anyone who hasn't been involved in the Lyceum structure, it's pretty much the same as Sunday school in any other church.
Yes.
And it allows for people to react socially. It allows them to react mentally, to be able to understand the processes that give us enlightenment in this life. And because of that, we become a greater source of illumination to the rest of the world. We're not the only ones on this planet that are striving to make life better on this planet. And truly, we must, because, as I said before, there are things going on around us that make our heart ache, but it's up to each and every one of us to make every day our lives just a little bit better in whatever capacity we can. Mm-hmm. And as I said before, that was the driving force behind Andrew Jackson Davis and his life's work to help humanity progress. During those antebellum years that Davis grew up in, and the spiritualist philosophy, religion, and scientific notions that it inculcated in mankind, during that antebellum period, the new United States would not be called the United States until Abraham Lincoln would, in his generous words, decree it to be so. Mm-hmm. And a great conflict had to be on this soil in order for that to become. But coming out of that spoken Jacksonian democracy through this period of antebellum spiritualism, that was the path of progress that had to be taken in order for the United States to become a more solidified union of people. And along with it, the spiritualist ethic and all of those things that rode alongside the spiritualist ethic. One very important thing that was brought into the forefront were women's rights, mm-hmm. the abolition of slavery, yes. So many other things that were looked at and adjusted to make life right for all people. And when, through all the years that this building has existed, and the Lyceum Conference has been presented in other places, when those young people walked through the doors of these structures to gather together and learn from their teachers and from one another what it was to be human, and reflect that when they walked back out through that door again and into a society which needed their thoughts as well as the thoughts of their elders to exist and progress. That is our primary function in this life, to be part of this existence and progress through it, not only personally, but alongside others who need a helping hand also.
There's that spiritual understanding that has to be developed, and there's the interior world that is cultivated by having the exterior world affirm it as well. Mm-hmm. And so that spiritual discussion and having connection with the spirit world help to lay those foundations within a person of support and of eternal and infinite love, and that peace that people feel when they're connected deeply to their soul and to those roots, I think are a big part of the essence of Lyceum for adults and for children.
Very much so. And going back to, I have to touch also on, at that same time when Jackson Davis was growing up, Henry David Thoreau was also out there living in the little cottage that he built on the edge of Walden Pond. And for any of you who have not read Thoreau's piece of work, that you can find at the public library, I'm most assured. And it is written very much in the same style of writing of the day, and it has a rhythm and a harmony that is particular to that place and time. As has been said, people don't talk like that anymore, but it's nice to hear it because it has a value. It's musical and it touches the heart very, very much.
And it's important that Ray just said the word harmony because Andrew Jackson Davis, he developed, I don't know if develop's the right word, but he affirmed a harmonialist philosophy.
The harmonial philosophy.
To be in harmony with the divine, to seek that, to be that, and I do feel that that is what assisted him in achieving and maintaining the superior condition. And when we talk about the superior condition, for people who want to know more about Andrew Jackson Davis and superior condition, I have had on the show in the past Tom Kratzley. So you can look back at the archive. I know I refer you guys back a lot, but you can look back. We've had the discussions with Tom about Andrew Jackson Davis and the superior condition and how we can bring that into our lives today.
Yes.
Just because something happened years ago, it doesn't mean that it's dead and gone in the past. It's something that is in us that we can access. If someone has done it before us and we choose to, we can also attune ourselves, align ourselves with that energetically, and build our spiritual understanding.
It's no different than baking a cake.
There's the recipe. Yes.
It's no different than baking a cake. Yeah. You follow the recipe. You have the patience to form all of the objects together that you need. The bowl, the spoon, the eggs, the flour. It's all there for you to use as long as you have the patience to make an honest attempt at creating a situation that allows you to sit down and have dessert after supper. And therein itself is accessing the superior condition.
Sure.
I think that everybody, whether they're a small child or whether they're a grown adult or an octogenarian, can possibly look back during their days and having it explained to them what being in a superior condition is, will find that they have unwittingly sometimes entered into that superior condition.
You know, I think people, once they understand it more, they realize where they've skirted around it and possibly dipped a toe in.
Yes. Yeah.
And
you don't know what the water's like until you jump in.
Exactly. Very, very, very true. So, you know, I hope that you all, as you're listening to this, start to understand the depth of why Lyceum is still important. Sad to say that during the off season they don't have Lyceum program. They haven't had for some years now. Love to see that regenerated so that people could bring their children to Lyceum while they go to church on Sundays, but that is not currently going on, so just want to make sure we're very clear about that. But in the summer, they do have you know, some programming for children and also a teens week that happens during that children's week. But it's something that we do need people that would be interested in the education of children in that way, along the lines of the Lyceum. The way spiritualists understand it. So
we do have people that would like to, but in many cases, those persons who would like to see a revival of the Lyceum system here and in other places are finding themselves so busy with life as we know it today.
Full.
There are so many hands pulling at us from outside of this structure that it's very hard. It's very hard for people to get together and do things. I think we all realize that. We have become to living our lives in such a fast-paced mode that we find it difficult to slow down enough to say, let's go over here and relax for a while. And once you can relax, then you become closer to involving yourself in that superior condition.
And I do feel that Lilydale assists people in that if you just let that, if you allow that peace that you feel as soon as you pass through the gates to really be at the forefront, and then you can go and sit by the lovely lake or take a walk in the woods, sit on a bench, or we'll sit on the Maplewood porch and chat with people about spiritual things. And there are so many workshops and message services and healing services that are coming up for the summer.
Funny it is, because I had this very conversation yesterday afternoon with someone else.
Oh.
You see, and I think that people are starting to realize, especially those of us who are here at Lilydale, and where Lilydale is such a part of our lives, that we have an idea that the expression which you just gave about what Lilydale is doing and what it may very well need to be doing are exactly those thoughts, with people coming here and experiencing an individual process by which they become attuned to nature, become attuned to the divine, so to speak, and find themselves more available to that superior condition which Jackson Davis spoke of.
Yes.
And as you said before, it's not out of our reach. All we have to do is follow the recipe.
Follow the recipe, folks. Any last things you'd like to share with them about Lyceum?
Well, I think that as Lyceum exists, and as I mentioned before, Lyceum is very much akin to the Sunday school systems that exist in most churches out and around, which are not spiritualist denominations, but be that as it may, all churches are the same because they give us that ability to approach our own divinity, so to speak.
It's an opportunity for fellowship with others and to see God in other people's faces too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is in all that we see, that energy which allows life to reflect itself to us and us to reflect ourselves to others, most importantly, in a good way. And with that, I think we can pretty much agree that there is hope for mankind and the future. And coming into that, every one of us will work just a little bit harder every day to not only see it in others, but to inculcate it in ourselves as well.
Yes.
And don't forget to pet the cat.
Don't forget to pet
And
the
the
cat.
dogs.
It's like just,
Yes.
And the dogs, yes.
Absolutely.
The animal lovers.
Well, our furry friends very often can give us more than just a modicum of comfort.
Yes.
If you've looked into the eyes of your dog and realized that that's one of your best friends, and if they could talk, all of the things that they would say to you.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's been beautiful to share with all of you a bit about the Lyceum and the importance of the Lyceum as a movement, as a spiritual understanding, and also as a building, as a location, a physical structure that is being maintained here in Lilydale. For those of you who are interested and are able to come to Lilydale this summer, the 2023 Lilydale Summer Season program of events starts on June 23rd and runs for 10 weeks until September 3rd. And that is your opportunity to come and experience daily events, sign up for workshops. You can register for workshops on the lilydaleassembly.org website. As long as you're on the Lilydale Facebook page, you will also get understandings of the different events that are happening, so you can start to
plan if you haven't already, so you can get things booked for hotels, guest houses, and if you're wanting to have appointments with a medium, get those booked now if you haven't already, because things are booking in. During the off season, up until June 23rd, it's considered the off season. So you can still walk around the grounds. There's no gate fee in the off season. And you can the public buildings are closed though, keep that in mind. You can walk around, go to the inspiration stump if you want, walk by the lake, make an appointment with a medium. I would encourage you not to just show up and expect that you're going to get a reading, because that's not how that works. Most mediums are busy, have busy lives, and you're going to need to make an appointment in advance. You can find more information about registered mediums, who are the only ones allowed to give readings here on the grounds of Lilydale. On the lilydaleassembly.org website, you'll see a little thing that says find a medium, and it'll list those out. You can visit their websites, contact them for more information as to their availability, pricing, and whatnot. Now, the other thing I thought I should mention is that September 3rd, as I said, is the last day of the summer season. Then it's considered off season. By September 4th, it's a lot of things are not open here in Lilydale. They do close the hotels. The restaurants usually are not up and running so much. So just keep that in mind. That the summer season is when most people try to visit Lilydale. We get tens of thousands of people that come through.
And with all that having been said, whether you come during the summer season or whether you're here during the off season, even just a day, even just a day spent, and it's pretty hard to take in all that is the grounds here at Lilydale in just a day's time. But it has been my experience over the years that persons whom I've never met before come here and will say to me, this is possibly the most peaceful place that I have ever walked the streets of. Yeah. And in having someone say that, they have become, for just a day, healed in that space of time. Yeah. They've gained a little bit more assuredness of themselves and the world around them. Yeah. Even just a day here.
Just a day, and to remember that they are a soul.
Yes.
And that they can have a spiritual response to the world, and a spiritual understanding that is deeper than any of the words that are shared out there in social media land.
And,
right?
and in a final summation, this man here, Andrew Jackson Davis, said to be true to yourself. Yeah. To be true to yourself. And in doing so, all of that you need in this life will come to you. He rather equated knowledge to an apple tree. To be able to walk out and seek knowledge and pick it from that tree and take it into yourself. As simple as that.
It can be as simple as that.
Very much so.
The other thing I want to make sure I mention before we close out for today is that during the off season, the churches run their own Sunday services. And I happen to be the Sunday speaker this coming Sunday, May 28th, at the Lilydale Spiritualist Church. So I will be the featured speaker and also medium if anyone's able to make it in person here to Lilydale this Sunday.
Very good.
Yes. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and thank you so much, Ray, for being here and sharing your knowledge and your history, and you got such spiritual depth to you. I feel people can understand that and sense that, even though it's across the street.
It's getting better.
It's getting better. All the time. Yes. All right, everyone. Have a beautiful week and a beautiful day. Bye-bye.